Hi, in this SAM Lab tutorial, we'll be covering how to run an independent samples t-test using SPSS. Imagine that you've been asked by a large company to investigate whether full-time and part-time employees differ in their level of job satisfaction. You administer a brief survey to a sample of randomly selected employees at the company. On the survey, you ask them how satisfied they are with their job on a scale of 1 to 10, and whether they are employed full-time, defined as 40 hours a week, or part-time, less than 40 hours a week. Here we have an SPSS data file with all of the survey responses entered. We have two columns corresponding with the two variables we'll be looking at, job satisfaction and full versus part-time employment status. Because employment status is a categorical variable, it's been coded so that a value of 1 indicates part-time employment and a value of 2 indicates full-time employment. A t-test is ideal when you want to compare the mean value on a continuous variable between two different groups. Here, we're comparing the mean level of job satisfaction for part-time employees, members of one group, with the mean level of job satisfaction for full-time employees, a second group. We want to perform an independent samples t-test as opposed to something called a paired samples t-test, because the two groups are completely independent of one another. Someone who is a full-time employee can't also be a part-time employee at the same company. To run the t-test, we want to select Analyze, Compare Means, and then Independent Samples t-test. In the window that opens up, we want to select our dependent variable, the variable that we want to compare between groups, in other words, job satisfaction, and bring it over to where it says Test Variable. Next, we want to select our grouping variable, or independent variable, which is the variable reflecting whether a respondent is employed full-time or part-time at the company. So we'll bring this over to where it says grouping variable. You'll see that there are two question marks that appear in parentheses after the name of our grouping variable. This is a reminder that we need to define or clarify for SPSS the values for the two groups that we want to compare. So we'll click Define Groups, and where it says Use Specified Values, we want to tell SPSS what value on our variable for employment status we'd like it to refer to as Group 1, and what value we'd like it to refer to as Group 2. For this example, this is pretty straightforward. We'll just type 1 where it says Group 1 and 2 where it says Group 2. When running the t-test, SPSS will now assign anyone who is employed part-time to Group 1 and anyone who is employed full-time to Group 2. This define groups function is beneficial when you have values for your grouping variable in your dataset that aren't already coded as 1 and 2, or when you have more than two levels of a grouping variable. For example, in addition to full-time and part-time employment status, you might also have employees who are contractual or seasonal. We could use an independent samples t-test to compare any two of these four groups on job satisfaction. We just want to specify here which two levels of employment status we wanted SPSS to include in the test. We're now ready to run the analysis, so let's click OK. As you can see, an SPSS output file has been created. The first table provides a summary of the variables in our analysis. The column that says N tells us the number of employees in each group. The next column tells us the mean or average value on the dependent variable, level of job satisfaction, for each group. We can see that the average level of job satisfaction for part-time employees is 3 on the 1 to 10 scale. The average level of job satisfaction for full-time employees is 6. An important question, the one that's addressed by the t-test, is whether or not this difference is statistically significant, or, put differently, whether the finding in the sample of employees that we surveyed is one we can be relatively confident holds true for the broader population of all employees at the company. The results of the t-test are displayed in the second table. The information in the first two white columns here are the results of the Levine's test for equality of variances between groups. Remember that a key assumption of the independent samples t-test is that the two groups have approximately equal variances. The Levine's test tells us whether this is a safe assumption to make. With the Levine's test, we're actually looking for a non-significant result. In other words, we're hoping to find that the variances for the two groups do not differ significantly from one another. Here, we can see that the Levine's test is in fact non-significant. We can move forward with the assumption that there are similar degrees of variability in job satisfaction in our two groups. We now want to look at the t-test results displayed in the top row of the table, the one that says Equal Variances Assumed. To the right of the Levine's test, you'll see the results of the t-test, which include the t-value, degrees of freedom, and significance level. As you can see, the t-value is negative 55.84. The degrees of freedom is 2,774, and the significance level is displayed to 3 decimal places as 0.000. What the significance value tells us is that the likelihood that we would have obtained a difference in mean job satisfaction level between part-time and full-time employees of 3 in our sample, if in actuality in the broader population of all employees at the company, part-time and full-time employees did not actually differ in job satisfaction, is pretty low. It's less than 0.1%. We can now go back to the company and tell them that the results of our survey suggest that full-time and part-time employees differed in their level of job satisfaction, and more specifically, that full-time employees reported greater job satisfaction than part-time employees. Thanks for watching this SAMLab tutorial on how to perform an independent samples t-test in SPSS. For more information, you can visit us online at samlabasu.com or on the SAMLab Facebook page. You can also reach us by email at samlabasu@gmail.com, by phone at 602-543-6045, or in person on the ASU West Campus in the Faculty and Administration Building in room B12.